Tui, and hi everyone out there that I can't see, and welcome to the official launch event for Wings of Fire, Book 15, The Flames of Hope, and the official coloring book. I'm so thrilled. Yes, I'm Amanda Maciel. I am thrilled every day to be the lucky editor of this amazing series, and I'm thrilled today to welcome Tui. Thank you for being here.
Of course. Hi, Amanda. I'm very excited.
Well, I know everybody cannot wait. Either has somehow already read this, which goes on sale tomorrow, or is very excited to talk about it, or both. And so I figured we would jump right in.
Sure.
First of all, that I know I work at Scholastic, which made that trailer, but it always gives me chills. I love it so much.
It's like when I just now watching all the books like kind of cascade, I was like, ooh, there are a lot of them. This is
I
exciting.
know. All that art together, it looks so beautiful.
Oh my God, I love it so much. Oh my God, Joy like outdid herself with this cover. Oh, it's so
She
pretty.
just keeps leveling up. It's amazing. And there's the lovely dragon on the back too, which I
Yep.
sky.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, do you look at that and think, oh my God, I wrote all those books?
The artist for the coloring book, her name is Brianna, and she has actually been posting art online for a long time. And I met her at an event, and she gave me some art that I just fell in love with. And so when we started looking for an artist for these books, and we knew that Joy and Mike were busy with all the other books, I was like, could we reach out and find Brianna and see if she would do them? And I'm just, oh my God, look at this one. There is a tiny little dragon holding a tiny little sloth. Oh my God. It's like my dream is to have a dragon and a sloth, just like both of them in my house. And in fact, there's a lot of tiny baby dragons in here. There's some bumblebees, little tiny hive wings. Oh my gosh, I know. I'm so, there she is! Yay! Phew.
Just have to make sure you were paying attention.
It's the
My role as the editor, I say one thing and then I run away.
No worries. I've just been burbling on about the coloring book and how much I love
could
it.
hear you the whole time. Thank you for
Oh wow,
carrying
really?
on. And those were my questions. I did want to start with why Luna this time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can talk about that. So I when I started, I knew it was going to be Blue Cricket Sundew for 11, 12, 13. That was pretty easy. And then I started figuring out 14 and 15. And I was like, who are the best ones to tell this story? And I knew that I wanted 14 to be about the arrival of all of these dragons from across the sea and like reacting to that and like learning to react better to that. And so it needed to be a character who had some growing to do about how to treat dragons who are in trouble and need help. And then I thought an Ice-Wing would be perfect because we've only had one before, and I was very excited to get into Queen Snowfall in book 14. But for 15, I had this like sort of selection of dragons who were going back. At the end of book 14, they all go back together to Pantala to try and save the day, and I was like, well, among those dragons, or is there anybody else that I want to focus on? And I thought it should be someone who like I want it to be someone who is who's like saving themselves, right? Like I didn't want it to be somebody else coming in like from Pyrea and being like, I'm saving all you Pantalan dragons. I wanted them to have a chance to save themselves. And especially the Silkwings, who I feel like have had like the most oppression basically over the last however many years in this world. So and I also just thought it'd be really fun to get into Luna's head and actually figure out like what's going on with her when we get to, you know, when Blue is because we've seen how Blue sees her, and we've also seen her be rescued like a couple of times. So I was like, it's time for Luna to rescue herself, you know, and everybody else. So, so I thought those were sort of my thoughts. Also, I thought it would be a really pretty cover.
And it totally is. Yeah, I remember when we were talking about it before you started writing, and we were talking about how Luna seemed to be a fan favorite, and you were like, but people don't really know her yet.
Yeah,
But they clearly want to.
I know. I loved that too. I did hear a lot of people ask for Luna, and that was a good sign
Mhm.
to me.
Yeah, totally. And we get lots of
And also,
sword
like
tales
some of
too.
right, that was another choice, but I was like, he's sort of stuck for most of the book. Like
Mhm.
he's the one who needs rescuing now. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, it would it would have been a very different book if it was like Sword poor Swordtail.
No. Well, it's been a minute since you had to wrap up an arc. And tell us what is that like? Because to me, you know, I read the books and I'm like, she's keeping all of these things in her head and on the page all the time. But a book five is all of that at once,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's always tricky, and there's always things that I wish I could get to that just didn't fit in. You know, I think I had told people before I was hoping we'd see Umber again in this arc, and we didn't. I'm
Mhm.
sorry about that,
Mhm.
but he's out there. He's okay. um, but for the most part, I was like, well, in terms of the characters that were like most crucial to books 11 through 15, and the themes, like how can I tie all of those together so that it feels satisfying, and we feel like each of our five characters, you get some sort of closure. And so but it also feels like the story could keep going. That was another part. Like I always want to leave the world feeling like, well, we solved a thing, but there were always more things and also more
Right.
dragons to hang out with. So so I don't know, it was hard. It was definitely hard trying to like pull it all together.
Yeah. It's such a
But
big,
hopefully
I
people
mean,
will like
it's the key, right? To writing a series, you need a really big idea because you need it to sustain over lots and lots of stories and for it to engage a lot of different characters and a lot of readers. But then you have this giant world to grapple with, and and that's a lot.
Yeah. I think what helps for me is like remembering that it all comes back to the character, right? The central character in this book. So, you know, whenever I was tempted to be like, well, what if I tried to explain everything that ever happened anywhere? I was like, but how does it relate to Luna? Because like each book has its. I think for me, writing a whole series like this would be a lot harder if it wasn't that each book is character focused and it's about like, you know, I want the feeling to be like any dragon can save the world, just like any person can make a difference. And so, you know, it just so happens that we're looking at this character right now. So how is she saving the world? Like, what does she do? So,
Right.
so that helps a little bit with trying to like to bring it all together in a
Yeah.
final book like this.
I feel like this is kind of a crafty question, but I feel like that kind of leads me into wondering, you know, I have read these books a bunch of times. I reread them pretty regularly. I just read
Aw.
book 15 again last week, and I'm still always struck by many things, but one of them is the way that you choose like the tone of the dialogue and the story itself. And you know, I really enjoy that they are um, so relatable and kind of accessible in a way, and not like fancy fantasy talk. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just particularly enjoy your approach to high fantasy, where it is high fantasy, but then the characters like yell at each other, you know, talk in all caps, um, and I always am curious how you feel about that because you're a fantasy reader and you grew up on books that were maybe a little bit more formal in tone, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
definitely. Yeah, no, that's very intentional. I want these dragons to feel like the way they talk, like they're like someone you might know, right? I want them to feel like ordinary teenagers, in a way. Like I just want them to, and I want them to be funny. I guess like as much as I love fantasy, I really prefer funny fantasy if I can find it.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I think sometimes this happens with TV shows too, where it seems like they just take themselves so seriously that nothing is ever funny, and then
Yeah.
then it's just sad. Like sometimes, especially because it is a world where like lots of terrible things happen, and there's a lot of stressful stuff going on with the dragons. So if it wasn't also sort of funny and like this sort of normal kid dialogue between them, I think it would just be hard. It would be harder to read. It would be harder to write for sure because I would just
Yeah.
always be, oh my poor everybody. But here now I'm like, well, if they can laugh about it, or they can,
Right.
still make fun of each other in between fighting bad guys, then
Well, and
maybe
I think it's more realistic. I think that in the real dragon world, they have a sense of humor, and that's how you get through the day too. Like
yeah.
to me, it makes it feel more grounded in a kind of reality. There's also that thing that if because fantasy is usually like without technology, right? That it must be set in the past somehow. But this is modern day Pyrea, as far as I know, in Pontala, right? Like,
Mhm. And I always say it's like translated from the dragon in my head. So I figure
Mhm.
it's like maybe this isn't exactly what it would sound like if you were listening to the dragons. But but this is how, like, for us reading it, this is how we'd understand it better. It's kind of like
Mhm, mhm.
I feel like the translation, there wasn't there a recent translation of Beowulf that was done in this whole other kind of
Yeah.
hilarious, that just got the essence of it instead of the like
Mhm.
specific words of it. And I don't know if that makes any sense. But that's how I
Yeah.
imagine the dragons. Like I just want us to to just understand them and like care about
Yeah.
them.
No, that makes perfect sense. It's funny. Sometimes people ask me, like, about editing as a job, and with these books in particular, I'm like, all I really do is like tell Tui to take out the math. Um,
Nah.
once in a while, you'll say like one of the dragons will say something that's like 75% something, and I'm like, no. That's where I draw the line. So really, truly, it's been a dream working on these books. It's everything that I want. They're funny, there's romance, there's flying, and there's no math.
There's no math. We will not stand for it, not in this world.
Exactly, exactly. They have art and books. That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The other thing that struck me on this reread, um, and thinking back to book 14 as well, is every once in a while, actually, this has been happening since I read the first couple of books. There will be a scene where I'm like, was Tui surprised that this idea came to her? Because we've known each other a long time, really, truly, like half of our lives at this point, which is
Yeah.
amazing. Um, and you are every bit as like exuberant and genuine and kind as you seem, and yet I get to these scenes that are like, like disturbing, I guess would be the word. The Jerboas, like that part of book 14, I was like, okay, this is like it, they're intense. I mean, Darkstalker is just a tour de force of like really intense stuff. And I'm like, huh, that's somewhere in her brain.
I, I've had friends from college say that to me too. They're like, that was unexpected. We thought your books would be more like unicorns and like cotton candy. And I'm like, well, they have cotton candy in their souls. Just not all of
Yeah,
them. Some of them are really bad.
yeah.
So I don't know. I don't
I
know.
mean, it
Yeah.
always it always makes sense, and it's always something that's like creative on a level that is really impressive and really captivating. But I found myself wondering. There's a detail that I will not mention specifically because it's towards the end of book 15. We will do a little spoiler section later, but we'll give everybody a big heads up. Um, but uh, but there was a detail there that I was like, huh, was this always in your head? Was this the plan the whole time, or do you ever get surprised by anything? It doesn't even have to be something that's like dark.
Oh no, I totally do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. Um, I think a lot of people who've seen my events before know that I don't plan everything out ahead of time. Like I prefer to discover it as I'm writing it. So some things I know, um, like I knew there would be an abyss in this book and we would go down into it, but I wasn't 100% sure what we were going to find down there. I had several ideas as I started writing it. And then the closer we got to it, the more I was like, oh, I know how I want this to answer a whole other mystery that I've been asked about. Um, and I also want it to tie into my theme of like control and who's telling the story and I don't know, a whole lot of stuff like that. So yeah. So it does get yeah, I wasn't entirely expecting it when I started writing the book, but it felt like it had to, you know, it sort of had to happen the way it did in order to match up with all the rest of the books and like the themes I was trying to grapple with.
Right, right. Here's a very important question. Can you hear me a little better than you could before? I think my mic isn't picking things up very well.
Oh, I'm hearing you fine. So no
Great. All
worries.
right.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep holding it like this because technology is fun.
Yeah.
Um, oh, my internet is yelling at me again, but I will try not to disappear, I promise.
Okay, no
Um,
worries.
oh my God. Okay, tell us a little bit about working on the graphic novels and the coloring book. You're at this point where all kinds of people are creating art, not just fan art, for the Wings of Fire series. And it was so many years of joy, Ang, making these beautiful covers. And then we started working with Mike Holmes, and now I know that there's other stuff going on, and Brianna coming on for the coloring book. What's that like to see new interpretations and renderings?
It's great. It's interesting because I mean, I would say that what's been in my head is very much Joy's art, definitely this whole time. Um, I'm not like a. It sounds weird, but I'm not a super visual person. Like everything I imagine, I think about it in words first, and so it's been helpful to like picture Joy's dragons doing all the things, and I feel like Brianna captures that style really well in the
Hmm.
coloring book. And
Hmm.
then, well, you sort of hinted at this, but I'm also getting to see some of the TV show art um, for the Netflix show, and it's been fascinating because it's not exactly Joy's art, but it is its own incredibly cool, just like extremely exciting thing, and it's so fascinating to me that there are people out there who like spend their day thinking about what these dragons should look like like
Hmm.
and how to distinguish them and like how to make this one look older than that one and what kinds of weapons they might have and like how the armor would be different from one tribe to another. I think it's so cool, and I know that the fans are really good at that stuff already. Like I know from what the fan art that is out there that there's so much variety in like what a dragon could look like.
Hmm.
I think it's just really cool. I feel really lucky.
I really love the fan art that maps the characters onto other characters. You know, my son has been reading the books and he matched them all up to Babysitter's Club characters, or at least the first five. And somebody years ago did My Little Ponies as
I
the
love the My Little
Dragoness of,
Ponies.
yes. Um, and I also know that you have sometimes over the years had like maybe celebrities in mind when you were writing, or characters from movies. Do you do that too? Do you like pick a whole other world and think like, oh, they remind me of my characters? Or is
I
that,
haven't I
yeah.
haven't done that myself very much, but my younger son is now finally reading all the books, and
Hmm.
he is doing that more than I am. Like you know, he he's like writing a whole. Well, actually, he started before he read the books. He started by reading, by like coming up with fan fiction with a friend of his who had read all the books, and it was very strange because he would come home and be like, "Mommy, I have an idea for a tribe," and I was like, "Wait, you have to do the homework first." You have to read the books, buddy. But then he got all excited and did read them, and he's
Yeah.
like working his way through them. And yeah, he talks about the characters a lot and like how like who of his friends are which one's a Glory, which one's a Tsunami.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and also we like a couple years ago because it was before the pandemic, we had lunch with a group of friends, a family, and their daughter like during lunch sat there and drew on a napkin like the human version of each of the characters. It was like a little human Glory and a little human Sunny, and it was so cute. I still have it somewhere
Wow.
because I was like, I'm going to steal this napkin of adorable.
Really?
That's one of my
Can she
favorites.
do dragon characters of the humans that we now know?
That would be really cool. Yeah, she probably can. She's very talented.
Ren would be delighted
Yeah.
to be turned into a dragon at long last.
Yes, that is true. I'd be too, probably.
Yeah. Just quickly back to the TV show. I'm not in the chat right now. I'm guessing everybody wants to know if there's any TV news. I'm guessing that there's probably not anything you can share or you would have, but
Right.
just doing due diligence.
I mean, it's coming along. They're amazing. I love everybody who's working on the show. I get to meet them like once a month, and like the new people. It just seems like so many people working on a TV show. It's so different from me in my office with my dogs in the middle of the night. To think about all the people involved and how they're, there's one person who, I mean, she does a lot, but she has come up with like different styles of scrolls for each of the different tribes, like what the finial, I think they're called finials, the things on the end of the scrolls would look like that you like twist them with, and they're so pretty. It's like so detailed and like amazing. I think I'm allowed to say that. There's a lot I'm not allowed to say, but I think we'll be very excited. Like it's just looking beautiful, and the writers are wonderful too. So I'm very excited. And it's also a long process. There's animating and casting is all still has to happen. So I think it's at least a year or two away. But when I know more and that I'm allowed to say, I will definitely pass it along.
Yeah, I think the impression is always that animation would be quicker for some reason, but it's very much not. It's the opposite. Like the graphic novels take a while to make, and yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot of people, a lot more people involved in the graphic novels than there are, in the regular novels too.
Yes.
Everybody brings their skill set. That's so cool about the scrolls, though. I wouldn't have thought of that, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's pretty
Um,
amazing.
there's so many really good details. I know when you were writing the first arc, you were watching Planet Earth on on what PBS, and I've been wondering, do you still do that? Do you still like do a deep dive into like nature documentaries before you start a new arc? Especially with Pantala, did you like revisit?
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, for Pantala definitely, because I was creating these new tribes. So before book 11, I watched a bunch of documentaries about insects, which was dreadful because insects are terrifying, and like I already have like a phobia of wasps. To the point where like my mom loves insects and she loves plants, so
wow.
she like mocks me mercilessly because I'll be like, there is a bug in the bathroom, we're never going in there again, so I
Right.
close the door.
Yep.
Just don't eat
Yep.
it.
Yep.
I don't know what it is. And she's like, it's a tiny little beetle. And I'm like, is it though? It's probably, especially after watching like Life in the Undergrowth, I'm like, yeah, but it's a beetle with like a nefarious plan. I know
Right.
it is.
Right. Well, and you very specifically live in a place with uninteresting bugs too.
Yeah.
So you've done your part. Like I know
Right.
that
And
in other
I
times in your
also was
life,
like,
you've been closer to interesting bugs, I think, right?
that's true. I moved away from the tropical bugs, and now I'm in a
Yeah.
place where there are like no bugs for like 6 months of
Hmm.
the year because it's too
Hmm.
cold. And I'm like, this is ideal.
Yes. That's what I say whenever it's like the depths of February and it's like, why do we live here? I'm like, no bugs. Or at
Yeah.
least no particularly large or interesting bugs.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that.
Oh my God. Oh my, it's 7:30 already. We will start taking Q&A questions pretty soon, but first, should we do a little pocket of spoilery questions and then tell people to come back if they don't want to know anything about book 15?
Sure. Are we also allowed to say anything about the guide?
Oh,
You
yes. Let's
know,
talk about that. That's not spoilery.
okay.
That's coming out next, like a year from now, or a little
Oh,
less than a
really?
year from now, 11 months from now, next March. We will be. Do you want to speak to it?
Well, I just wanted to say, you sent me some art from it recently, and I'm
Mhm.
so excited. It's so beautiful. It's like all these different queens, and I'm hoping I just want to like somehow get them up on my wall because they're all so
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
Um,
This is like joy at a whole new level of, I don't, it's unbelievable what she's doing for this book.
it's so
Yeah.
pretty. And then
Yeah.
each section has, for the most part, they each have a little like short story or first person account from a dragon. So you get a little more sort of the lives of dragons that you haven't seen center
Mhm.
stage, right? Is that a
Yes,
good way
I
to
will. You
describe
know
it?
what? This is something I do a lot. I will say it is a beautiful, exclusive, gifty book that will be full color with new art and all new content written by Tui. And the idea is that Starflight and his friends are gathering. Just any written thing that they can from all of the tribes. So each tribe is represented. There will be stories and snippets of diaries and letters, and we'll hear from dragons we already know. We'll hear from dragons we have been curious about but don't know as much about. It's really going to be amazing. And yeah, that'll come out next spring. I'm so excited. It's a guide to the dragon world. And
It'll answer questions like, what happened to Scarlett's husband?
like that's naming my favorite part. Yes. Very excited to share that with readers. Yes.
Yay. Okay. Well, now we
And
can talk about spoilers if you want.
sure, you know what? I'm so allergic to spoilers. I'm not sure if I have any spoilery questions for you. I realized I brought
Okay.
that up and I'm like, ah, what am I gonna ask?
That's okay.
You know what? Let's talk about the flame silk a little bit because Luna is famously a flame silk,
Mhm.
and we learn more about that. I think really than we even got to know before. Um, Tell me about writing that and kind of figuring that out for how that works for her.
Sure.
Um,
Actually, it was interesting because I kind of had to keep reminding myself that she's a flame silk, and that's like her cool thing. Because we started with Blue, who is also a flame silk, but he wasn't for the duration of his book. Like he didn't have
mhm.
that power yet. It's something that he gets when he is. Sorry, my son has started his drum practice in the basement.
I don't think anybody can. I can't hear it. I'm guessing nobody else can either. But I know you can hear it, and that's probably a little distracting.
It's hilarious. I guess we did not have we had the don't come in during the event chat, but we didn't have the don't play the drums in the background chat. It's fine. It's great. I'm glad he's doing that. Good job, buddy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Flame Silk, I was like, what is she? Because I love having like each dragon have something that makes them different from other people or other dragons. And so for her, that's sort of the obvious thing. And and yet I still, yeah, I was like, how can she use it? Like, and also then how can she think she's going to use it and not be able to?
Mhm.
Because like especially with books 6 through 10, there was a big theme of like you don't actually need to have a superpower in order to save the world. So
Right.
I was kind
Well,
of
and you
going
also kind of ruined fire for everybody at the end of book 14. 13?
13,
No, I'm now
13.
yes, the end of book 13. It's like, well,
Yes, now actually
so
fire
much
back.
for fire being useful.
Sorry, flame silks. I mean, you're still cool though. You could do other things. But then it was fun to get into different kinds of flame silk. The fact that she can
Mhm.
actually you kind of play with it, and it's not always the same when it comes out. Like sometimes it's really powerfully like flammable, and sometimes it's just beautiful light. So
Mhm. Mhm.
the different things she can do with that. So that was something I did have to sort of keep in mind as I was writing it. I was like, how can this be cool and relevant to the story, but maybe not be the only important thing that she does or has. If
Right,
that makes
right.
sense.
And it's important too because the Silkwings have kind of been, and certainly the Flame Silks among them have been oppressed because of this ability.
Yeah.
It's a big part of that story. So to kind of figure out how to use it on her own terms and for her own purposes is really nice to
Yeah.
watch her do. Um, and then let's talk. You know what? This isn't really spoilery, but do you want to talk a little bit about how you pulled Swordtail into the story, even though because they're separated, but their relationship is so important and so important to Luna.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me
Um,
about. about that process.
Sure, because I think my first draft didn't have as much swordtail as I wanted. Like I started, because he wasn't there. So I just had to keep being like, and Luna is flying along, and then she's like, oh, thinking about swordtail, sad. Seems to be swordtail. And or she'd be like sitting on a beach having a conversation and be like, I'm still thinking about swordtail. I was like, keep trying to insert it somewhere. And then I was like, you know what? These are like the dragons she's with are like reasonable, smart, and kind. One of them would definitely have a dream visitor, and they could totally use it, and that would be the perfect way to remind us like why Luna's doing this. Like, I mean, obviously it's for her entire tribe and the world, but it's a little bit also just because how much she loves Swordtail. And we saw him being that way about her in book 11. And I wanted there to be some reciprocal, like, they're definitely like an OTP for me. So like I wanted her to be not just thinking about him, but like I wanted us to see them together a little bit more. There's a scene where she dream visits him, and then there's also a scene that's like a flashback to how they met, because I feel like that's always the most fun, is like the meet cute, I guess you could say, where it's like how did they fall in love in the first place? Why are they the right dragons for each other? So I hope that comes through in those two scenes. And gives you a
No, I think you do that really well. Of there's those romantic comedies where it's like they're together and then there's music playing and you watch them walk through Central Park or whatever, and it's just not. It's like, tell me what they're saying and why they like each other. And I think in Wings of Fire, with the friendships and with there's always fantastic dialogue. But
it's my favorite thing to write. If I could leave out everything else, and it would just be dragons in an elevator talking to each other. That's kind of where I start. It's like just dragons talking to each other, and I'm like, oh right, and then somebody attacks, and then we fight those adversities, and then
so
back
you're
to
saying that. So you're saying elevators are canon.
Gosh, they'd have to be magic elevators, I guess. We've quite gotten to.
I mean, they'd have to. This is another conversation I was having with my son. We were talking about weaponry, and I was like, I feel like dragons don't really need weapons because they are weapons.
That's true.
Like, why would it even occur to armor? I get defensive weaponry. I totally understand, but otherwise,
wait, elevators are canon. In Dragon Slayer, we see an elevator-ish type thing on the pulley outside the.
Yes, yeah, for those non-flying humans. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I guess flying dragons don't really need elevators.
Exactly.
Well, maybe for the Silkwings. Ooh.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, Silkwings could use them.
Maybe this can be one of the reforms to the hives, while they wait for the trees to grow back. Although, I don't know. Is it spoilery to say that like things will be okay?
I think if you've met me, you can probably guess things will be okay. There will be other problems, but probably not these specific problems.
Yes. All right. I do want to take some Q&A. I'm not sure I'm seeing where it's supposed to show up, so I'm just going to say that instead of, we can look in the chat too. Let's see. Oh, good. What main character do you think you could have expanded more on?
Main character?
Yeah.
I mean, the main characters, I guess I sort of feel like, they each got their own book. So hopefully they feel sort of complete. I mean, I guess, as the story goes on, I do occasionally feel like I want to go back and visit them again and be like, wait, there's more to Peril's story. There's more to all their stories. But
that's what I like about the timeline being so tight. I mean, I feel bad for these dragons that they've been through so much in like a year and a half. I don't, not going to decide how time works on this planet, but it's been really quick, so we get to kind of see them again, and not too much time has passed. Somebody asked what the inspiration for the Breath of Evil was.
Oh, inspiration for the Breath of Evil. I guess
did that come from a nature show as well? Please say no. I don't want to.
I know, right? Oh wait, no, actually, you totally did. Hold on. So it came from a few different things. There was a lot in the insect documentaries about insects that like infect other insects and then like grow their eggs inside them, like plant their eggs inside other living insects until the eggs hatch and or
Mhm.
like mind control other insects with various different things like toxins or um, things like their eggs inside their heads. There's like one
Right,
of
I've
like a
heard of
spider like
that.
losing its mind because there's like a wasp egg in its head. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I shouldn't tell you guys these things. But anyway, so I had that.
You know what, though?
They
This answers my earlier question about where these ideas come to you. They come from nature documentaries. It's the natural world
come from
around
just
us.
how creepy insects are, actually.
Yes.
I
Yep.
tell you, I was like, I had been like reading. I just watched like it's the section on wasps, and then like I found one in my car, and I just like freaked out. And the children like have
Mhm.
not let me forget it. They were like, "Mommy, remember that time that you were like screaming and like pulled the car over?" I'm like, yes, I remember. You were too. Why do
Yep.
you remember that? Wait, for the people. So there is totally like a plant that like grows through like that, or is it, I forget, is it spores? Yeah, it's like spores that it like releases, and they like land on ants, or they like burrow into ants heads, and then they like the ants like will climb up a stalk, and like the plant
Right.
will grow out through the top of the ant. This is all real. um
Yep.
Although I'm mangling the description of it, and I would have to look up what it's actually called, but I had like reams of notes on this because I was like, that's creepy, and and would work really well in a book. Yeah, I can probably look that up, what it was called.
No, I remember seeing that on a show and then immediately throwing it out of my brain. Um,
No, thank you. I do not want to know that anymore. I
but
mean,
you're
that's
not
also very
wrong that
charming.
like an evil queen would not ignore that or walk away from that kind of knowledge. She'd be like,
Mhm.
"How can I make this work for me?"
Right, right, right. Like, surely there's a way this could be
Yeah.
mine.
Yes. Fair enough.
So I thought there were going to be questions in the stage chat, but I don't see any yet.
I know. That's all right. They're working on it, I think.
Okay.
You know what? This is kind of an esoteric question. What does Wasp want, do you think? Like she just wants just power,
Every
just yeah.
all the
What's
things.
what's she gonna do with it when she has all the Isn't she gonna be lonely?
Um, Yeah, good question. I mean, I think that doesn't worry her. I think
Mhm.
I think a lot of, well, I don't know. Just like expanding on the psychology of people, but I think a lot of times power comes from fear. Like the desire for power comes from some
Mm,
kind of fear. And I think that's part of it with her. Like it's not just that she wants to be in control of everything, but she wants nobody else to be in control of her, which is ironic.
that's such a smart point. Yeah, I totally see it.
And so she's like, if I preemptively seize all the power in any situation,
Mhm.
then no one will ever tell me what to do,
Right.
which is not in fact true for her. But
Yeah, but not totally unrelatable either.
right, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's part of it. I think that, yeah, I think that's where a lot of like real world bad guys are coming from as well,
Right,
unfortunately.
right.
um,
We do have a question in the chat that said, how did Rainwings become pacifists?
that gets answered in the guide, actually. Or at least partly. It does, yes, it does. I think it does. Yeah, there's a long ago letter that is unearthed,
Hmm.
that Starflight puts in the guide to tell you a little bit, like sort of hints at what happened. There's like
Hmm.
I think still a lot of opportunity for some fan fiction about what exactly happened, but
Yes, yes, I'm excited to see that. Ooh, and we have somebody coming to stage. I think Ruby is going to come
okay.
and talk to us about the Ice Wings whenever she's ready. Um,
Wait, tricky question. Okay, let me do some research real quick.
get out your family tree about
Oh, seriously.
winter.
Um,
I have to say, we also have a copy editor who's been working on these books pretty much from the beginning, who is fantastic with helping to keep this stuff straight in our heads when each book comes out. So that has been helpful, but it doesn't mean that there's not also other things. Hang on, I will check the chat too while we're waiting for Ruby. Let's see. I see a question about a third continent. If you think there is one.
I guess there could be in the whole world. I haven't like planned it out, so I would say, I wouldn't say no, but I haven't like made a plan for it, so I couldn't tell you anything about it.
There's a question about what happened to the Animus powers, but that gets answered in book 14, right?
It does, yes.
It's
sort of a long-winded way. I was like, let me tell you, but first, let me give you an entire story about this whole other character. Won't that be fun?
Oh, okay. Ruby's gonna skip coming to stage, but she did want to know what happened to Animus, the Animus lineage in the
from
Ice
the Ice
Wing.
Wing.
Yeah. Because would Winter be an Animus if he was royal? I don't know.
No, I think that's a reasonable question. I mean, first of all, I think Diamond does have other children, just none of them happen to be Animus dragons. It's not like if you're an Animus dragon, all your children automatically are. I'd say it's a recessive gene, if that makes any sense. And so maybe you'll have an Animus dragon, or maybe it won't show up again for several more generations, and it just never showed up again in the Ice Wings. So, I mean, I think after Diamond, isn't it Snowfox that becomes queen? Anyway, and so in my head it's just that it's sort of unlucky. Like, it shouldn't be that you lose one Animus and you never have an Animus dragon again, but that's just what happened to them, to the Ice Wings, sadly for them. Well, maybe sadly for them, or maybe luckily.
Yeah. I think they already put quite a bit of pressure on their kids in that tribe.
Right? It's like the fact that none of them had snapped before is actually kind of a miracle.
Right. Somebody in the chat wants to know which of your characters you like the least, which is a new one.
Oh, my poor characters. I mean,
I think that's a more challenging question than who do you like the best, actually,
yeah,
for you
it
specifically.
definitely is. Yeah. I mean, of all the characters, the ones I would least want to hang out with are like Wasp for sure, and this guy, what's his name? Totally. I actually changed his name like 80 times. Cottonmouth.
Oh yeah.
Don't like him very much. Don't like the king of the Indestructible City. He's kind of dreadful. Lord of the Indestructible City. Don't like the people running Talisman in Dragon Slayer.
No.
They are like insufferably smug dudes in charge of things. I probably don't want to hang out with them.
Yeah.
But in terms of like hard to write, that's come up before. There's a couple of the dragons that were harder to write main characters than others, like Turtle. I mean, I love Turtle. I just want to hug him all the time and be like, it's okay. You're right. I do love you. But he does come up whenever I'm like the hard books to write, because he just did not want to save the world. He was not. He was like, literally, you called me Turtle. You brought this on yourself. I want to stay under the rock and have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, and at that point you feel mean dragging him through a whole like adventure to save the world.
Exactly. I was like, oh man.
I think we have somebody coming to stage. I don't want to make any promises, but if Willow wants to come up and just say hi or ask a question, please feel free. Also have a dragon Willow, so
I know, that's pretty awesome. Called Willow. One of my favorite names.
Let's see.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. How are you?
It's nice to meet you too. Well, I didn't think I'd actually get invited on stage. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Did you want to ask a question?
Oh, I have a few questions, if that's all right.
Yeah, well, give it a try. Let's see what we can do.
Okay. Well, what is your favorite tribe in Wings of Fire? Your favorite?
Oh gosh. Well, I always say the tribe I'd want to be part of is the Rainwings, because they sleep a lot, and I totally want a pet sloth. But in terms of fun to write, like it was really cool to like get into the world of the leaf wings. I liked working on the leaf speak that Sundew has and figuring out the two different kinds of leaf wings that live in the poison jungle. So that was one that I really liked doing the research on. And then like figuring out the ice wings too. I would not be a good ice wing, but but they were fun to plan.
Okay.
What about you? What would your tribe be?
I'd probably definitely be a rainwing. I'd probably be a rainwing or a silkwing. Probably.
Cool. Yeah, I like the silk wings too.
So, do you want Sky to meet Peril at any point in the books?
Oh, I do. That's such a good example because that was something I really wanted to include in book 15 and it just didn't fit. Like there wasn't a place to put it that like Luna would see it happen and then it wouldn't like divert from the rest of it. But it means that, you know, now we get to see that hopefully some other time, some other place, because I think that would be, I mean, they've got to meet each other. Peril has like nobody. And also they'd be so funny together. Oh, I think they would. I'm like picturing their elevator conversation now.
Will there be any like trans or non-binary dragons in the books? Because I've seen a lot of theories that Sky is trans because when they're twins, they're usually the same gender.
Yeah, I love that theory. I mean, yes, I'd say there are definitely non-binary dragons. I have always I feel like I should have a better answer for this, but my vision of this world is like if you tell someone you're a certain gender, that's just what you are, right? So Sky says he's a boy, like we just all believe he's a boy. He is a boy, and I think that's how it is. I think in our world, it's important for the visibility for people to explain like that they're trans. But I think in this world, they've gotten to the point where they don't need to. They're just like, I am a girl, I am a boy, and that's just what you are because we love you guys. So that's how I feel about it.
Okay. Which character do you think is probably the most fleshed out, the most complete?
Oh, wow. What an interesting question. I mean, I try so hard to make all of them feel that way, but maybe in my head, the one I can immediately jump into anytime is Sunny because I gave her the most of me. So, with a lot of the other characters, I have to pause a little bit and be like, well, how would Tsunami react to this situation? But with Sunny, I'm like, how would I react to this situation? So I think for Sunny, she feels to me like there's definitely things about her that are different from me. But in my head, she's like a complete character. And Kinkajou too, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully they all
more about some of the characters really know themselves really well, right? And the rest are still growing and changing. Well, I'm so glad that you came up on stage and those were such good questions. We're gonna invite Emmeline up next. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was so great to meet you, Willow. Thank you so much.
It was amazing to meet you too. You're like my favorite author, like of all time.
Thank you so much.
It was amazing to meet you. Thank you for inviting me up on stage.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for your questions.
I think we're expecting Emmeline next.
Cool.
Those were really excellent questions.
Yeah.
I was just having a conversation with another reader the other day about Kinkajou and how she's done a lot and like that whole like could Kinkajou be a main character discourse, totally. I feel like it just hasn't she suffered enough
and saved the world enough.
Right. Hi.
Oh, I don't think I can hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I love your books. I've read them all, and I love them.
Thank you. How do you say your name?
Emmeline.
Emmeline. It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you. You too. So, I had a question. I was wondering this since like book 1. what is the comparison of human years to dragon years? Because it says like Clay and Sunny and Gloria and everyone are like 6, but they don't act like they're 6. So like,
Yeah, no. They are not 6-year-olds like our version of them. That's true. Well, so in my head, they're like sort of older teenagers, but there isn't a direct correlation like this many dragon years is this many human years. I think I confused things in the books by saying 7 years old is when you're fully grown, meaning like that's when you go from teenager to adult, but that's not actually how I think of it. That's what I meant. That's like when they stop growing physically, like or not stop, but that's sort of like they get bigger quickly until they're 7 in dragon years. And then they only grow really slowly after that, which I think is actually, I read somewhere it was true of some lizard. And I was like, well, that's neat. I mean, yes, I did that. But so in my head, it's sort of about their personalities. It's sort of about, I think of them as sort of like teenagers between like 14 and 17. But I also feel like anyone who's reading the books and like can like feel that that like that character feels like them. It's okay if you're picturing your own age for that character. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, there's not like a specific, like once you're 2
okay.
dragon years, you're like 4 human years. It's not quite like that.
I was also wondering, how do you think of the names of the dragons?
Oh, I spent a long time thinking about the names. Blue's name changed several times. Blue actually was originally called Dusky, and then I brought the name Dusky back for a different character in book 15. But I have a list for each tribe of a bunch of different possible names. So even before I started book 11, I sat down and I was like, here's a bunch of Silkwing names, and here's a bunch of Hivewing names and Leafwing names, so that I could, whenever I was introducing a new character, I could go look at that list. Because sometimes I get stuck and I'm like, I can't write this paragraph until I know this character's name and it has to fit them perfectly, So yeah, I mean, some of them come really easily, like Cricket. I knew right away. I was like in love with this magazine called Cricket, which is still around. When I was a kid, I read Cricket magazine all the time, like every single one. And so I have like very fond like associations with the word cricket. So yeah, so it kind of depends on the character. Some of them are easier than others to like fit the name too.
Okay, I got to jump in and say we have time for one more stage guest and question. Thank you so much, Emmeline. Those were excellent questions.
Thank you.
It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you, you too.
Yeah. Oh no! And we lost Amanda at the same time. I think someone, well, if I don't know if Amanda can come back, but it looks like maybe someone named Z is coming up next, if I got that right. Oh, there's Amanda! Yay!
Yanking people off stage all over.
Hi. You are still muted, Z. Oh,
Oops.
there we go.
I'm on. Okay.
I can hear you now. Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for doing this.
So I have a question about Blue. I've just been wondering about it for a while, and I was looking at butterflies' names because I was creating an original character, and I was looking at blue butterflies, and is Blue named after the, I don't know how to pronounce this, Minolus Blue Morpho?
Oh, is he? You know what? I think I was picturing the Morpho wings because they're so beautiful when I was thinking about Blue.
Yeah.
But I actually chose his name because there's like a whole bunch of butterflies that are called the like something blue or the something else blue. And so it just felt like a good sort of true, like reliable name. It felt like someone you would trust. I've actually used it before. I used it in my Menagerie trilogy too, because it's just, I don't know, I really like the name Blue. Sort of an unusual but like likable character. And also because there were so many like of that kind of butterfly, I was like, it fits that he doesn't think of himself as special, but of course he is. Mm-hmm. Does that help?
Yeah. Do you know there is a subreddit about Wings of Fire? And a couple times every month somebody will ask the question, does Tui know about this and is she on here?
She knows now.
I do not. Well, I do. Yeah, I don't know. I think if the question is Tui on here, the answer is almost certainly no, because I Like if I go into social media or the internet, I never come out and I get lost. So I try not to. And I also love, like, I want people to feel like they can talk about anything and not have me just like looking over their shoulder being like, wrong. So I love that there were people like having conversations and getting very passionate about the things I'm hoping the books will make you think about, without me having to hear all of them. So I'm glad it exists, and thank you for telling me. But no, I'm not lurking on there at all.
Okay.
Z, thank you so much for your questions. I think we're going to wrap up now.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. It was great to meet you.
Yes.
Good luck with your character.
Tui, I just want to say again, thank you. And also this year is the 10th anniversary of book 1 publishing.
Yeah.
I know.
That's crazy.
My last question for you is, if I had told you 10 years ago, all you get to do for the next 10 years is write about dragons.
I'm like, yes, that's my dream. Thank you so much.
You don't have to answer that way if you don't want to.
It's only with hindsight that I'm like, that sounds tiring. In fact,
or
I
when
had
you
a
watch
friend,
the trailer and see all the books lined up. It's like,
right?
who did all
I
that
did
work?
have a friend like a year ago sent like an email to all of our like our college group of friends and was like, hey, I had this dream that we all like woke up 20 years ago and got to relive those 20 years and like all the things, like what would you change? And I was like, no, thank you, I've already written those books. I don't want to rewrite them all. That
You don't want to
would be very
relive through deadlines. Like, that doesn't feel.
No, I've done those.
Dragging, like, almost literally dragging Turtle out of his shell to get book 9 written. Like, no.
Right,
Did it.
right. Exactly. My hands are tired.
Yes. Well, happy 10-year anniversary.
Thank you.
And happy eve of pub day of book 15. It's so good. For anyone who hasn't gotten to read it yet, you're in for such a treat, as always. And please also look for a copy of the coloring book. It's super fun. I colored a page today. It's Luna, of course, in honor of tonight. Thank you again, Tui. It's always lovely to chat with you and
You too,
and to
and
celebrate
thank you.
the dragons.
Thank you for the last 10 years. Like it has just been always like just joyful getting to work on these books with you. So I
feel
really appreciate
exactly
it.
the same way. Yeah. And I don't have to write the books, so I just get the joy.
Well, I'm very, very grateful. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to Looped and to Barnes & Noble, and we will see you next time, I guess.
Yeah. Yes, we'll do this again.
All right. And now I think we get yanked off stage. I'm pretty sure that's what happens next.
I see a button.